Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 3, and today we're taking a look at the 1985 HDT VK Commodore Group A. And yeah, this was a homologation version of the touring car where 500 were built to allow it to qualify. And yeah, this is basically a Holden, but it was sold under HDT because that's a Holden dealer team acronym. And yeah, they all came in blue, which gave it the nickname the Blue Meanie. And yeah, it's really rather retro in its styling. As you can see, it's fully from the time of the 80s with its square front nose and square rear end. And yeah, it's a bit rounded off, but it's still technically a square saloon car. But yeah, it's really rather large, it's really rather practical. It's got a really rather large boot, which you'd expect from a car of this size. Plenty of rear leg room, and yeah, it's got plenty going for it on the interior as well at the front. As you can see, though obviously it's really rather basic, wind down windows and yeah, not all that much in the way of luxury. But then again, it was 1985, you're talking more than 30 years ago, so that's to be expected. I do really like the square speedo and rev counter. That's really rather typical of the 80s, quite frankly, and kind of runs along with the theme of the rest of the car being a bit square. But it's got quite a solid engine going for it as well underneath. It's a 4.9 litre V8 engine, produces 263 horsepower and 308 pounds-feet of torque, which is pretty good, especially from the 80s when your American rivals didn't have anywhere near that amount of power outside of the Buick Regal, or the Buick GNX, should I say, which came around a few years later. But even that didn't have all that much more power than this, and for it to not be even turbocharged or supercharged, that's quite a hefty amount of power. So yeah, it's got quite a lot of racing pedigree going for it as well, obviously, because it's by the people that did all the touring car stuff. And as you can see, it says first place at Bathurst in 82, 83 and 84. And then when this was when they finally built the 500 that they needed, this was also apparently quite successful as well. So yeah, as a result, it should be a good handling and good car to drive. So let's go out on there and see what it can do. Alright, let's see what this Blue Meanie can do. So yeah, it's quite a low revving V8, barely passes 5,000 RPM, which doesn't exactly give away the apparent racing pedigree that this car has. But it has fairly decent handling for a car of this size and of its age as well. Plenty of old school oversteering fun, and yeah, the fact it doesn't weigh all that much either for a car of this size. It only weighs 2,954 pounds, which really isn't all that much when you consider the size of the vehicle. It's yeah, means that its acceleration is decent, though not as impressive as I was expecting. Sorry, I was expecting it to be a lot quicker, but unfortunately it isn't. Only 0 to 16 7 seconds, and 0 to 116.5. Though it does have a decent top speed of 144 mile an hour. But I was expecting that acceleration to be more when I saw the figures, because it's got a healthy amount of horsepower and torque, and like I said, it doesn't weigh all that much for a car of this size. So I was expecting it to be, you know, a little bit more on the acceleration side. And I know it's not a proper comparison, but it's 0 to 60 times slower than a modern day hatchback like the Vauxhall Corsa VXR, which, you know, when you consider how big the engine is in this car and how much more power and torque it has, that is a bit of a shame. But like I said, it does drive really rather well. I do like the sound of the engine as well. It's not the most sophisticated car out there in terms of handling, but it does the job. It's fun to oversteer and drift around corners, but when you want to take it seriously, the car will respond, and yeah, can respect it for that. So yeah, it's not my favourite new Holden to the Forza series, but I'm glad to put it in anyway, because it is again a car from Holden that I've never heard of before, just like pretty much every Holden that's new to the Forza series. And yeah, it's just a shame that it's not as impressive as the previous additions from Holden in this game. It was far more impressive with the Monaro and Sandman and that pickup. Not necessarily because they're quicker or better in terms of handling, but it just had a little bit more character to them than this. But it's still a likeable car, and I'm sure if you gave it a few extra upgrades here and there, maybe a little bit less weight or a little bit more power, it'd do the job. But it's still really rather likeable nonetheless, as it is. So yeah, this does give me hope that they'll put more Holdens into this game. I was expecting them to slow it down after having so many put in so far, either in the base game or with any future DLC, but yeah, they're still keeping at it, and I'm glad, because I love discovering new cars, and there's plenty from Australia that I've never heard of before, including this one, but I'm glad I do know of it now. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.